Today I wanted to share with you the 4 disciplines, the 4 domains that we have for the Eclectic Leadership Movement. The 4 disciplines are linguistics, psychology, political science, and leadership wisdom from pan-cultural, indigenous, and principle-based sources. I'll walk you through each of them one by one. The first discipline on which the Eclectic Leadership Movement is based is linguistics. To be specific, it's applied linguistics. And there are fine differences between applied linguistics, and just simply languages. As we understand various languages, he or she speaks many languages, but linguistics is the science of languages, the building block. So that's the first one. The second one is psychology. To be specific, it's again applied psychology, not just theoretical psychology. It's the application of the psychological aspect. So that's the second foundation of the Eclectic Leadership Movement. The third one is political science. So this is extremely important that we have included political science as the third foundation for the Eclectic Leadership Movement. And bear in mind, when we talk about political science in Eclectic Leadership Movement, we are not only talking about politics. It is definitely a part of the overall political science ecosystem. Politics in your company, politics in your family, politics in the world, geopolitics, but that is all part of the political science domain as a whole. So we are just not talking about politics. So that's the third domain. And the fourth domain that we are relying on to build the foundation of the Eclectic Leadership Movement, simple leadership development practices. Now here we are differentiating ourselves by drawing inspirations and insights and information also from non-Western, indigenous, and principle-based sources of wisdom. So again, just to repeat, the 4 foundations that we have for the Eclectic Leadership Movement are: number 1 is linguistics, number 2, psychology, number 3, political science, and number 4, leadership wisdom from non-Western, indigenous, and faith-based sources. These are the 4 foundations on which the Eclectic Leadership Movement is based on. In order to illustrate the concept better, I wanted to share this image with you, and it's very unique. Unlike many other leadership development programs or concepts, which shows you yet another diagram, another 2x2 or a 3x3 matrix of some sort, this is extremely unique because we are looking at a visual now. So let me share that with you, bring it up on your screen. And in this image, I'm going to walk you through all the 4 domains or disciplines of the Eclectic Leadership Movement in this one image, so that it's extremely powerful. I'm not going to bore you or kill you with more PowerPoint slides. There's no more slides to share, just this one image. Even if you don't take anything away from this video today, just remember this image. So what you're seeing on the screen, all the 4 elements of Eclectic Leadership Movement in action, right? So you definitely, what do you see? You see a ship. There's a captain with a telescope in hand. There are some people, the salesman in the back. And you see the ship is sailing, right? There's a big ocean with a lot of waves. And you have 4 sails. Do you see that? Right. Now, let me draw your attention to the name of the ocean. It's called linguistics. Yes, just like the Pacific Ocean, just like the Atlantic Ocean, just like the Indian Ocean. Let's call it this ocean the linguistics ocean. Okay, that's the first element. So it's the day-to-day, the daily waves of words and meanings that we have to make and convey or hear and understand in our day-to-day lives, in business and politics and society. That is what we are navigating. We are navigating an ocean of words. We are navigating an ocean of languages and communication and meaning making. However, it is called linguistics. It is not just languages. First of all, so that's the first element that you see. The wavy, foamy water is called linguistics. Second, I wanted to draw your attention to the 4 sails that you see in this image. And the 4 sails are belief, thoughts, feelings, and actions. Now, These four are the foundational building blocks of psychology, and they are interconnected. They work in a cycle in that order. They're interdependent, they're interconnected. So your beliefs impact your thoughts. What you believe in, that's converted into your thoughts. That's what you think. And what you think, your thoughts control or impact or produce your feelings, right? Your emotions. And the way you feel, what you're feeling as your emotion leads to your actions or your behavior. Do you see? So this is the four foundational blocks of human psychology, that beliefs impact or lead to thoughts, which impact or lead to feelings, which impact or lead to actions, and then it keeps on reinforcing itself. So this is the foundational building block of psychology. Now, the reason that why there are these four sales, just because of that, because they're interconnected. Once one of the sales, which is belief, is moved, it eventually impacts everything else. So that's why they say that when you have to change somebody's action or behavior, you have to go back to the root of the belief system, that what's happening before that. So that's the second element of the eclectic leadership movement. All right. Now, the third element, I wanted to draw your attention to the ship itself. Have a look at the name of the ship, which is called in Greek politike episteme. It just means different political epistemologies or different political viewpoints. That is extremely important because we are living in some sort of a political system wherever we are, right? In our company, there is some sort of a policies, governance. In our countries, in our societies, it could be a democracy, it could be an autocracy, it could be a monarchy, but we are living in some sort of a political system. And companies, political parties, schools, colleges, there is some sort of a political system going on. And I'm not saying political system doesn't mean just politics. It's more about power, persuasion, influence, community, cohesion, governance, all that kind of thing. And that ship itself, when we say leadership, that is the ship that you see in this image, where the leaders are, where the followers are, where the teams are. So that ship is nothing but a metaphor of a company. That ship could be a metaphor for a company or a country. That ship could be a metaphor for your society, your community. That ship is the vessel that's navigating this dangerously wavy, stormy, uncertain ocean of communication and language, right? Powered by the four sails that you have of human psychology. Because leadership here, we're talking about humans leading humans. And psychology, the human psychology, is based on these four elements, which are used as a metaphor, as sails in this image. Okay. So three are covered. So we've spoken about linguistics as the ocean, the four sails, the four foundational blocks of psychology, and the ship of the leader. The leadership is there. Now, who is there? As you can see, that's where the fourth element now comes into play. That captain, that person, the leader, has got a telescope in his hand, binoculars, whatever you want to call it. That's the vision. So that signifies, that is the metaphor for a leader's vision, trying to figure out if there is how far is the destination? Where are we going? Can I see the North Star? These are the visionary leaders who are trying to guide the ship, guide the vessel through the stormy waters towards its intended destination. And behind that leader, you have the team, which are making the vessel sail through the stormy water. They are your salesmen, whatever their roles are in that overall ecosystem of the ship. That's what they're doing. Now, what we are arguing is, this is what we want the leaders to be drawing inspiration from: non-Western, indigenous, and principle-based sources of wisdom. Okay, so these are the four foundations of eclectic leadership you have in this one image. You have linguistics, you have psychology, you have politics, political science, and you have leadership wisdom, leadership development, leaders, teams, etc. All four elements in this one image. Now, I wanted to clarify a few things here. Now, there are three conditions for these four domains when we are talking about their impact on the eclectic leadership movement. It's extremely important to understand. The first condition that we are suggesting is of concurrence. The second one is sequence. And the third one is preference. What do we mean by that? When we say concurrence, we mean that these four elements of linguistics, psychology, political science, and leadership development from non-Western, indigenous, and faith-based sources, principle-based sources, they have to concur. They have to be present at the same time. When we are talking about eclectic leadership development, eclectic leadership movement, eclecticism, we cannot talk only about linguistics or just languages in general. We cannot only talk about psychology, neuroscience. Not really. We have to talk about all four at the same time. You can talk about linguistics, but talking about linguistics and not talking about the impact of the languages on our psychology, or how linguistics impact power play, power dynamics, or governance, or in the political system, it's incomplete. So we have to make sure that all of these four foundations are mentioned, applied, practiced, implemented, considered at the same time. So that's the first condition, which is concurrence of all of these four domains will have to be present at the same time. Okay. The second condition for the four factors of eclectic leadership movement is about sequence. Sequence is the second condition for the four foundational domains of eclectic leadership. Why is sequence important? When we say linguistics, psychology, political science, and leadership wisdom from non-Western, indigenous, and principle-based sources, that order is extremely important, and there is a reason for that. It's strategic, it's evidence-driven. It's not just any other order that we just thought, okay, we just have to mention four things or just put them in any order. So, okay, we'll talk about psychology, we'll talk about political science, languages, la la la. Not really. We have to talk about linguistics first. It is an important, required, and necessary condition for eclectic leadership movement. We have to talk about linguistics, applied linguistics, the science of meaning making first and foremost. Second comes psychology. What's going on in our head? The impact, the emotions, the beliefs, the thoughts, the memory, the trauma, anything that's going on in our mind, in our heart, our impact on others, and mental health, spiritual health, emotional health, empathy, everything it is second. It does not come before linguistics. It is extremely important, but it comes after linguistics, and there are reasons for that, which we'll cover in another video. The third one is political science. The power, persuasion, influence, community, living together, balance, harmony, governance, teams, right? Tribe. All of this is coming under the political science umbrella. And this is something extremely unique for the eclectic leadership movement, because unlike other leadership development models or frameworks where they definitely talk about power and persuasion, negotiation, and all of that, but we just have to call it out what it is. It is a political science. It is a political system that we are talking about when we are talking about governance and communities and all. And it's not a bad thing to talk about political science. It is not a bad thing to talk about politics. And we really want to put in the emphasis on political science as active citizens, as active globally connected citizens, participants in our company's process, in our country's process. So we have to talk about political science when we are talking about building eclectic leaders for the future. You do not talk about politics, you do not talk about political science in your leadership development. Either you are living in a la la land, or you have got your head buried in the sand. So good luck, but eclectic leadership movement is ground up. It's something that it is based on people's lived experiences, and which is unfortunately or fortunately impacted by the politics that we are living in. And we might as well talk about it. We might as well be prepared for it as well. And the fourth element in that order is just leadership development, which we are talking about all along. Now, you'll notice that when we talk about leadership development, it's again to specify that we are not discarding or discounting the Western lens of looking at leadership development or teams or whatever. But our argument is that a little bit of Kaizen here and there, a little bit of sprinkling of Ikigai, and we think that we've completely nailed the Japanese culture, how to do business in Japan, just by talking a few Japanese terms like karate or karaoke. it's not done. I think it's enough. That lemon has been squeezed for too long. And even things like Culture Map by Erin Meyer, it has ran its course, to be honest, And we think that culture maps, these kind of models, they had a reason, but they're extremely westernized. They're more like a Western backpacker's view of India, for example, or for China or for Africa. That a backpacker comes off from America or the West, goes to India, goes to the Middle East with a map and tries to figure out through these kind of culture map tools that, oh, Indians are collective, or Indians are like this, Indians are like that. You cannot put 1.5 billion people on a matrix or on some sort of a scale. Culture is not that easy, I'm afraid. So what we're trying to say is that the fourth foundation is leadership development. We do not talk about leadership development as the first thing. That will eventually happen, but we have to follow that order. We have to follow the sequence. We have to follow the concurrence. So we talk about linguistics further, how actually people are talking, what kind of a meaning they're making, what are they understanding, what are the filters they're applying, and why. Second comes the impact on our mind, the psychology, because they are connected, how they're making me feel. It might lead to how we act, right? Either individually or in a group. So psychology comes after we figure out the science of languages or linguistics. Third comes political science, that once you have figured out the linguistics bit, then you have figured out the psychology bit, then comes your community, right? So you're not alone. You have to live as part of a system, and you apply your tools and techniques that you have picked up from linguistics and psychology, right? So that's the third element. And finally, once you have actually understood the power and importance of linguistics, and then you've understood the importance of psychology, and the tools and techniques, and then you have got a grasp on political science and the systems of governance and communities. Leadership development from a non-Western, indigenous, and faith-based, principle-based sources, it's not a walk in the park, but it becomes natural. Do you see that? It becomes very easier to understand how then you become a leader, to lead yourself. You can lead with more clarity. You can lead through more meaningful connections, and you can lead for an aim for confluence of all basic human values. You can only do that when you become an eclectic leader, once you have gone through those four domains in that order. So bear in mind, linguistics first, psychology second, political science third, then you can become a all-round eclectic leader if you look at the leadership principles and practices from a non-Western way as well, from indigenous sources, from principle-based sources, from faith-based sources. It could be based on religion. There is no problem with that as well, as long as you're drawing some similarities or applications when it comes to leading yourself, your family, community, or even your country. So, in a nutshell, well, I'm calling it a nutshell, but it's turned out to be a very, very long video. Thank you for your patience. So the four foundational pillars of the Eclectic Leadership Movement are, again, linguistics, psychology, political science, and leadership wisdom from non-Western, indigenous, and principle-based sources. The three conditions, as I've mentioned, that concurrence, all four have to be present at the same time, discussed at the same time, practiced at the same time. Second is sequence. They need to be in that order: linguistics, linguistics, psychology, political science, and leadership development, in that order. The third one was preference. What we mean is, you might argue that, okay, why these four? Why can I not be inspired by anthropology? Why can I not be inspired by music? Why can I not be inspired by salsa or tango dancing? Be our guest. Absolutely, there is nothing stopping you from deriving inspiration from whatever you think is appropriate for you. What our argument is that anything that you want to bring in is an add-on on top of the four blocks that we already have. So if you are getting inspiration from salsa music, that will be a fifth block on top of the four that we already have. If you want to get inspiration from gardening or on leadership development, you've figured something out, that might be on top of that might be a seventh or eighth block on top of the foundational four of Eclectic Leadership Movement. So that's the last condition, called preference, that we prefer. We understand that you can be inspired by anything that you want, but our preference is for these four domains only, and first and foremost. We are open to including more, but these four are mandatory. I hope you found this video pretty insightful, and if you are curious, and if you want to now lead with more clarity, if you want more connections in the way you lead yourself, if you want to aim for more confluence in your life for all basic human values, you should definitely join the Eclectic Leadership Movement. Would suggest you subscribe to our channel, ring that bell button so that you'll get notified every time we come up with a new video. More food for thought, and we would definitely love you to share this video with somebody who want to also lead with more clarity, connections, and confidence. I'll see you in the next video.